Chapter 95, Summer 1976, Part 3, Peace Talks. It wasn't easy for Remus to keep Sirius at a distance while he was staying with the Potters. The house was big enough, but that didn't matter much in a family home, something Remus was only just learning. Mrs. Potter gave Remus his space during the first couple of days, but after that, it was clear that she had no idea of the rift between the marauders and expected the three boys to spend all of their time together, as usual. As much as they were each uncomfortable with this arrangement, for their own reasons, none of them wanted to disappoint or worry Euphemia. So, an uneasy truce was struck, and Remus spent most of his time reading his book, sitting close enough to James and Sirius that it did not look suspicious. Grunt had said that it wouldn't always hurt, and though he hadn't had the full facts of the situation, Remus was starting to believe him. He still felt very angry towards Sirius, but it hurt less, as the final weeks of summer drained away in a flood of sunshine and blue skies. He was able, at least, to be civil, and Sirius seemed grateful. At any rate, he had stopped trying to corner Remus into a conversation every 5 minutes. Besides, after his conversation with Moody, Remus had other things occupying his mind. For years now, he had been labouring under the assumption that Greyback did not know him, that he would have the element of surprise in his corner. But now it seemed that Greyback might be looking for him too. He could not tell the marauders this, not until he knew more. No use getting them worried. If Moody said that Hogwarts was safe, then Remus was inclined to believe him, for now. The Potters clearly trusted him, and that would have to be enough. What was more, he knew Ferox. Remus had Ferox on his mind too. Once again, his old professor seemed like the safest option when it came to asking questions. He understood Remus's need to know more, even if he didn't know why exactly. And Remus didn't want to be a bother to Mr. Potter, not when he seemed to have the weight of the world on his shoulders already. He would send an owl to Ferox as soon as he was back at school, and as soon as the dust had settled on his recent revelation. In the meantime, Peter came over every day, and they went out on their brooms, or else lounged about on the lawn, smoking, listening to Sirius's record player, and sunbathing. Remus turned a warm hazelnut brown all over, which made him look healthier than he ever had, and his hair bleached a shade fairer. On the penultimate day of the holidays, they were doing just this. It was too hot to move, and all 4 of them were lying on their backs, baking in the sun. Remus had positioned himself a little further away from the others, just to show Sirius that he was not off the hook. Also because Sirius had an annoying habit of taking his shirt off, and Remus was trying not to notice. "Tell me again," Peter yawned, arms behind his head. "What was the night bus like? I've always wanted to go on it." "Dream big, Petey," Sirius drawled. "It wasn't that great," James replied. "Can't wait until we can all apparate. Lessons start in January." "I'm going to be rubbish at it," Peter said, forlorn. "Desi has been reading on the theory books. I can't get my head around it." "Well, it's better than relying on that stupid bus." James removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "It's fine for magical locations, but the driver kept getting lost on the way to St. Edmunds." Remus's stomach flipped. He really hated the idea that James and Sirius had been there. He felt as though they'd seen some private part of him he would have preferred to keep hidden, like the first time he transformed in front of them. "I can't believe I missed that too," Peter sighed. "Were there loads of muggles? What was it like?" "Come on, Pete," James said. "That's Mooney's home you're talking about." "It's fine," Remus said. "I bet it's great, living with loads of other people your age," James said encouragingly. It was James's greatest sorrow that he had grown up an only child. Remus looked for the right word. "It's noisy. Did you go inside?" "Padfoot did. Crawled under a hole in the back fence." "Didn't go in the building, though," Sirius said, rolling onto his front. The muscles in his back moved smoothly under his skin, and Remus had to fight not to bite his lip. "Some bitch started throwing stones at me." "Matron," Remus confirmed. "Must have been," Sirius nodded, obviously pleased at the attention. "If she treats people the way she treats dogs, then I don't blame you for running away." "It wasn't really about her," Remus said pointedly. "It's lucky Prongs and Padfoot found you, though, yeah, Moony?" Peter smiled, blissfully ignorant. "Otherwise you'd be lost in Muggle London." "I wasn't lost," Remus said icily, putting his book down finally. "I was with a friend." "But James said—" "I said he was in a squat, Pete, not alone. He's with this Muggle chap. Sorry, Remus, I forgot his name." "He didn't tell us his name," Sirius said, out of nowhere. Remus sat up and squinted at him. Sirius was staring at him in a strange way, but it only brought Remus's hackles up. "No," he replied. "I didn't." He got to his feet. "I'm going in. It's too hot." James, who seemed to have grasped that the conversation had taken an unpleasant turn, got up too. "Yeah, you're right, Moony. Shall we all go in for a bit, have a drink, and do that washing up Mum wanted sorting? She'll be back soon." Mrs. Potter had left for the afternoon on an errand, and Mr. Potter was at work. Gully was in the house somewhere, of course, but he never made his presence known unless summoned. The boys were pretty much alone. "I'll go home if you're doing chores," Peter grumbled, struggling to his own feet. "I can do housework at mine." "Cheer up, Wormy." James slapped him on his sweaty shoulder. "There are jam tarts in the kitchen. You can have the marmalade one if you want." The four of them strolled back across the crisp Bristol lawn to the house, stopping at the shed so that Sirius and James could put their brooms away first. Pete went straight in for his tart, and Remus hung back on the patio between them all, feeling very put out and agitated. He sat on the low brick wall again and listened to Sirius and James's cheerful banter from inside the shed. "I ought to polish the handle again before I pack it away." "Bloody hell, Prongs, you polish it twice a day already." "It's called looking after your equipment, Black." "I call it sexual frustration." "Oh, piss off." There was a scuffle, and Remus could hear Sirius's gleeful cackling as the two boys wrestled. "Wait till we're back at school and I can curse your bollocks off," James laughed. "Oh, don't you dare. Some of us use our bollocks." "You tosser, I ought to—" "Oh shit, watch out!" "Ah!" Sirius cried. "Bugger, that hurt." They both staggered back out into the daylight, Sirius clutching his hand. "What did you do?" James asked, peering over. He paled upon seeing Sirius's hand and backed away. "Sorry, mate. You know how I am with blood." "Ugh, it's really bleeding too." "Oi, get away from me." "What shall I do? Wait till your mum gets home." "No choice. I don't know any healing spells." "Ow, it bloody hurts." "Oh, for God's sake." Remus stood up, squinting. "Let me see." Sirius and James both turned to look at him. Sirius's eyes flickered to James, then back to Remus, before he walked over, hand outstretched. The cut was very deep, blood running in rivulets down Sirius's long white wrists. Remus swallowed. "You need to clean that. It'll get infected. Hang on, I've got some stuff in my trunk." He led Sirius through the kitchen, upstairs to the first floor bathroom, and turned on the cold tap. He had some TCP in his trunk left over from St. Edmunds. He often had to look after his own scrapes when Madame Pomfrey wasn't around. He brought it through, along with some cotton balls and gauze. "Come here," he said, sitting on the edge of the bathtub and motioning that Sirius sit on the closed toilet seat. He obeyed, still holding his hand out warily. It was much cooler in the bathroom, reassuringly sterile, like the hospital wing. Remus found that very calming. Sirius was placid and docile, trusting Remus completely with watchful eyes, like a pet. "What's that?" he asked, as Remus tipped some disinfectant onto the cotton. "TCP," he said. "He'll clean the wound." "Is it Muggle stuff?" "I'm sure it'll work just the same." Remus raised an eyebrow. He took Sirius's wrist, gripping it more roughly than he really needed to. His skin was hot from the sun. Remus could feel his pulse. "It's gonna sting," he said, and he pressed down. Sirius flinched, and Remus was reminded of the time after Christmas they'd spent in Potter's bathroom, piercing Sirius's ear. "Will it hurt?" Sirius panicked at the last minute, as Remus was poised with the pin. "Well, we've numbed it a bit, but yeah, probably," Remus said, matter-of-factly. "Don't be such a girl." "Be gentle with me, Moony." They had both laughed, and Remus shook him fondly. "Stay still, you big wuss." He finished cleaning the wound, then wrapped it in the gauze, taping it neatly. "Probably throb a bit," he explained. "Meant to be tight. Stops the bleeding." "Thanks, Moony." "Any time." Remus went to get up, placing both hands on the cold porcelain of the tub. Sirius suddenly reached out and touched his arm. "I'm sorry." "I know," Remus replied. "You've said." "What I did." Sirius licked his lips nervously, still grasping Remus's arm, as if it was the only thing keeping him in place. "Don't," Remus frowned, his resolve weakening. "But we ought to talk." "We can't," Remus said simply. "I can't, anyway. There are no words for what you did to me." "No." Sirius hung his head. "You're right." He let go, but Remus didn't walk away, though he knew he ought to. Sirius ran his uninjured hand through his hair in frustration. "I'm such an idiot," he said. Remus did not refute this. Sirius continued. "It was a really good year, wasn't it? 5th year. Spending the moons together, and the parties. Then I went and ballsed it all up." "Well," Remus relented, "I made some mistakes too. I made things were different after my birthday." "What? Moony, no!" Sirius's eyes widened. He looked so earnest and sincere that Remus wanted to forgive everything in an instant. "I know I wasn't... You didn't do anything wrong. What happened on your birthday, it was..." Remus held his breath while Sirius searched for the word. "It was really brave," Sirius finished. Remus blinked. "Brave? What on earth was that supposed to mean?" Sirius saw his reaction and tried to cover his tracks. "I just mean that you shouldn't worry about it. That didn't change anything, okay?" "Okay." Remus looked down then, feeling braver. He looked up again. "We never talked about that." "You're my best friend, Remus." "Sirius, please." "And I know what I did. There aren't words. No. So I'll shut up and I'll do actions instead, okay? I'll prove I'm sorry every day, I swear. I'll never do another stupid thing without thinking again." Remus gave him a small smile. "Oh, come on." Sirius smiled too, looking relieved. "Yeah, okay, maybe a bit ambitious. I'll never do anything to hurt one of my friends, ever again. How's that?" Remus breathed in deeply. Forgiveness would be such a blessed relief. "It's a start." Chapter 96, 6th year, September. Wednesday the 1st of September, 1976. This is the year, lads. This is the year it finally happens. 6 years of waiting, and it all pays off. You can't be talking about what I think you're talking about. Remus raised an eyebrow over the top of his book. Oh, yes. James was beaming like a drunkard. Lily Evans is definitely going to realise she's mad about me. I can feel it. Are you sure, though? Sirius smirked. You've had these feelings before. I have. James nodded respectfully. You're quite right, Padfoot. But something is different this time. I can practically taste it. Love is very much in the air. Or lust, Remus muttered, flipping his page over. You're probably just picking up on the raging hormones coming off these idiots. He nodded at Sirius and Peter, who both kept glancing out of the train window, looking for their respective girlfriends. Who are you calling an idiot, Moony? Sirius retorted. I can't help it if I drive women wild with desire. Sirius bloody Black! I could kill you! Mary's furious shriek could have shattered glass. Sirius practically leapt 2 feet off his seat. Remus gave a satisfied nod. Wild was something anyway. James gorfed, nearly choking on the Bertie Bott's every flavoured beans he had been chewing. No one was happier about Remus and Sirius's reconciliation than James. He didn't say anything directly, but as soon as he recognised that his 2 best friends were no longer keeping each other at arm's length, he was grinning from ear to ear, back to his usual mischievous self, and therefore back to sighing over Lily Evans. Lily entered the carriage at this point, just behind Mary, who had burst in like a whirlwind. Lily smiled at Remus and took the spare seat beside him. He smiled back, and they settled in to watch the show. What have I done? Sirius asked, affronted. You really don't know, do you? Mary stood with her hands on her hips, a look of disgust on her face. She looked spectacular when she was angry. Her gold hoop earrings jangled. Her kohl-rimmed eyes were wide and fiery. Diagon Alley? She stamped her foot. Sirius's eyes widened. Bugger. Fuck you, Black! Mary turned and stormed back out. Sirius scrambled up to follow her down the corridor, just as the train was starting to move. Oi! Mary, wait! I'm sorry! Remus turned to Lily. What did he do? Forgot her birthday, Lily grinned. Apparently they had a plan to meet in Diagon Alley, and she waited for 2 hours. Oh, bollocks! James slapped his forehead. I was supposed to remind him. You're just as bad as each other, Lily snorted. Godric saved the girls stupid enough to marry any of you. Has anyone seen Desdemona? Peter asked distractedly. Lily shook her head, and the boys shrugged. Peter got up. I'll see you lot later, and wandered out of the carriage. Bloody hell, James said. What's happened to the marauders? Oi, I'm here, Remus said, returning to his book. My only true friend, James smiled. You'll never leave me for a girl, will you, Moony? No chance, Remus replied, turning the page again. Wait, Lily yelped, grabbing Remus's shoulder. That's why they call you Moony. Remus gave her a sideways grin and nodded very slightly. Lily looked amazed. I can't believe I didn't work it out sooner. Hang on, James frowned. Worked what out? It is just an in-joke, right, Remus? Some stupid thing we came up as kids. No big secret or any prongs. Remus shook his head, laughing. It's fine. She knows. James's hazel eyes widened, and he stared back at them both. Lily giggled, her eyes teasing, and Remus suddenly saw exactly why she drove James so crazy. You're an idiot, Potter. But at least you can keep a secret. Well, of course. James straightened his back and puffed out his chest. We'd all do anything for Moony. Remus was really quite touched by that. He had to raise his book to hide his face. He hoped Lily knew that James was being quite honest and not just showing off for her approval. The compartment door slid open, and Marlene entered. She'd had her hair cut into a neat bob over the summer, like Mia Farrow. It was very becoming. She smiled and nodded at her friends, sitting down next to James. Sirius and Mary are having a proper screaming match out there. It's mental. She looked at Lily, then James, then Remus. What have I missed? Mary forgave Sirius by the time they reached Hogwarts, on the promise that he would take her for a day in Hogsmeade to make up for it. Remus was pleased. He could honestly, truly say that without bitterness. He felt that Sirius had drawn a line under their kiss back in the Potter's bathroom, and it was up to him, Remus, to honour and respect that line. Sirius liked Mary. Remus would just have to get over it, that's all. And yes, fine, sometimes Remus fantasized about kissing the hollow of Sirius's collarbone, about tracing a line from the pit of his throat down to his navel. So what? That was purely Remus's problem. He'd have to focus his attentions elsewhere. Perhaps Christopher had become dazzlingly attractive over the summer. The feast and the sorting was as magnificent and reassuringly predictable as ever. The friends chatted about their new timetables. Lily was extremely disappointed to find out that Remus had chosen to drop potions, but he promised to keep giving her a run for her money and charms. Their summers, tactfully avoiding Mary's birthday, and the looming pressures of Newt's. All blissfully normal, Remus thought to himself as they finished their puddings and got up, yawning, ready for bed. "I'm knackered," James said, stretching. "Early night tonight, yeah, Marlene? Practice first thing." "Oh, no you don't, Potter. You're coming with me," Lily said sternly. He blinked, as if he couldn't believe his luck. She frowned. "We've got to leave the first years to bed. Have you already forgotten your prefect?" "Oh shit, yeah, whoops." Lily tutted, getting up. "We'll work on your language too. Come on." She looked at the others. "Password's Lionheart." They thanked her and went on ahead, leaving James behind, looking confused but grateful. Sirius flung himself into the largest, comfiest couch in the common room, taking up enough space for 3 people. Mary joined him with an indulgent smile, settling her little feet across his lap. Peter and Marlene started a game of chess on the carpet in front of the fire, and Remus picked up his book. "Everything is as it should be," he smiled peacefully. A chapter in, Sirius evidently grew bored. "When's our first party, then?" he asked the general room. "Our first match is in November," Marlene said from the floor, her eyes on the game. You couldn't look away for a moment when you were playing with Peter. No one knew how he did it. "You can organise the victory party if you want, Black." "That's ages away," Mary purred. "Halloween? Close to your birthday. We can do it after the feast." Remus's stomach rumbled at the mention of a feast. He put down his book. "Wonder if there's time to go down to the kitchens." "You can't possibly be hungry." Sirius arched an eyebrow. "You had 3 helpings of pudding." "You're probably right," Remus sighed and settled back into the armchair. He shifted sideways, dangling his long legs over the end, kicking off his dirty tennis shoes, and returned to his book. It was Dickens, The Pickwick Papers, and funny but dry, so that you had to really focus in order to actually find the funny bits. Unfortunately, a full stomach, a long day, and a warm fireplace were not conducive to concentration, and Remus soon dozed off. It must have been only half an hour that had passed, when Remus snapped awake at the sound of raucous laughter. "Stay still, Potter!" "I'm trying!" Remus blinked a few times, confused and groggy. He stared around to find Peter and Marlene rolling on the hearth rug, giggling, Mary standing next to Lily near the portrait hole, where James appeared to be performing a very complicated and vigorous Irish jig. Remus smiled sleepily and straightened up, his back sore from sleeping all folded up like a deck chair. He turned left, just to get the grizzle out of his neck to pop, and caught Sirius watching him with a soft, unconscious smile. Remus raised an eyebrow, which seemed to break the spell, and Sirius blinked, then looked away quickly. "What happened?" Mary was asking, with hands on her hips. "Silly Pratt was showing off, as per usual. His hex hid a suit of armour and backfired." Lily was half laughing, half trying to corner James for long enough to perform the counter-jinx. "Who were you trying to hex?" Sirius stood up now, crossing the room. "Bloody Mulciber," James said, a comical frown on his face as his legs flew about energetically beneath him. Petrificus totalis, Sirius said with a yawn. James froze still and fell to the ground as stiff as a board. Black, Lily sighed. What? Sirius grinned. I was only trying to help. Remus giggled, still stretching. It was probably time for bed now. He got up slowly, as Sirius, Mary and Lily stood over James, arguing which spell to break first, the dancing one or the petrifying one. And Sirius was in favour of simply levitating him back up to bed as he was. Just as Remus was heading in the direction of the boys' dormitory, he caught sight of Christopher. The 5th-year boy was coming down the stairs with a shiny silver prefect's badge pinned proudly to his chest. Unfortunately, Christopher had not become incredibly good-looking over the summer. In fact, quite the opposite. He had obviously been somewhere very hot and sunny over the summer, and his pale English skin was scorched bright red and peeling grotesquely at his nose. They stared at each other for a moment, before Christopher looked at his feet, then walked away without a word. Remus felt the sting of guilt. He'd have to apologise at some point. Wednesday, the 8th of September, 1976. With your owls behind you, and your newts over a year away, do not fall into the trap of believing that this will be an easy year. Your 6th year lays the foundation for your advanced exams, and the work you will be doing is pivotal in determining the opportunities available to you once you leave school. Remus fought not to yawn. He might have felt nervous, worried, spurred into action, and he had been, the first time he'd heard this speech. They were halfway through their first week of 6th year, and so far every teacher had performed some variation on this address. This morning, the lecture was being given by Professor Flitwick, and therefore made mildly more interesting because of his squeaky little voice. Remus looked out of the window. It was the full moon tonight, and he was restless. He had a horrible feeling about it. As well as the usual early twinges and surges of adrenaline, it was the first full moon he would be spending with the Marauders since that terrible night in June. It was the first full moon after the werewolf attack in August, since he'd run away from St. Edmunds. The murders played heavy on his mind. The family was called Monday. Both parents had been Muggle-born. It had been in the papers, and Remus had read everything he could while he was at the Potters. He'd searched high and low for mentions of Greyback, for a picture, a description, anything. If this man was after him, then he needed to be armed with information. But there was nothing. The press wasn't publishing anything more than Moody had already told him. The letter to Ferox had been written for almost a week now. It was burning a hole in Remus's back pocket. He'd been waiting to get a chance to sneak off to the Owlery on his own. Dear Professor Ferox. He knew that Ferox wasn't a professor anymore, but he didn't know what else to call him, and couldn't bring himself to address him as anything so familiar as Leo. I hope it's okay for me to write to you. I had a few questions, and I couldn't think of anyone else who might know. I spoke to Alistair Moody while I was staying with the Potters this summer, and he said you're well. I hope you aren't anywhere too dangerous. Moody told me that the Monday family were murdered by Greyback. He said that Greyback might try to find me and get me to join him. I hope you know I would never join that side. I do want to be prepared when he comes after me, though. Can you tell me anything useful? I don't even know what he looks like. I'm sorry to bother you with this, but you're the only person I can ask, 'cause you knew my dad, and you know me. Thank you. Remus J. Lupin. He knew that you were supposed to end letters, yours sincerely, or yours faithfully, or something like that, but it seemed so silly and formal. He worried that Ferox might think he was trying to seem too grown up. Moony, wakey wakey. Sirius shook his shoulder. What? Remus looked up, blinking and dazed. Sirius was standing over him, and everyone else was packing up their things. Lesson's over, Dopey. Where did you wander off to? Just distracted, Remus replied. He stood up and scooped his own assortment of quills and parchment into his bag, getting up. Sirius's face softened. He leaned in and said very low, Is it because of tonight? Are you nervous? Remus gave a sort of half shrug, half reassuring smile. No more than usual. We've got 3 now, Sirius said chirpily. He was very much enjoying his Newt's timetable, having dropped 4 subjects. Want to pop round the greenhouses? Nah, Remus grinned. It's okay. I have to go to the Owlery. I've got a letter to post. Oh yeah? I'll come with you. James has another Poncy prefect meeting. I swear you never went to this many meetings. Nah, I sort of left it all up to Evans, to be honest. Remus smirked. Of course, I wasn't trying to impress her. Sirius laughed. Too bloody right. At least you know where your priorities are, Mooney. Who's the letter for? Do you mind not asking? Remus looked down as they left the classroom, walking with a slightly longer stride than usual, so that Sirius would have to walk faster to keep up. It was a cheap trick, but there had to be some benefits to being tall. Oh, of course, mate. Sirius nodded respectfully. Don't mind me. I'm just bored, you know. He had been extremely pliant lately, eager to supply Remus with any allowances he requested. Remus thought he would probably get away with snogging Mary on the Gryffindor dinner table with Sirius's blessing, the way things were. They tramped up to the Owlery quickly. With the moon waxing, Remus's energy levels were through the roof. They were going single file up the narrow, winding staircase. The Owlery was a beautiful place, by anyone's standards, provided you ignored the smell of bird shit. With the very best view of anywhere else in the castle. It was a bright and airy space, with high rafters filled with the soft sounds of roosting owls. Sirius dutifully hung back at a respectful distance as Remus selected the sturdiest-looking owl. He had no idea where Ferox was, or how far away, and wanted a bird that was up to the job. Attached his letter and released it through the huge picture window. Sirius was leaning out of the window on the opposite side, staring down at the forbidden forest. How far do you reckon we got last year? He asked. A couple of miles at least. At least, Remus agreed, joining him at the windowsill. Think we could reach those mountains? There are caves, I bet. I used to quite fancy living in a cave when I was little. Me and Reggie were going to run away from home and become cave dwellers. Weirdo. Remus shook his head. It'd be freezing. Yeah, well, you don't think about that stuff when you're 7, do you? I suppose. I never actually thought about running away, to be honest. Lots of boys actually did it, but the police normally brought them back. Matron used to say if one of us went missing, it was no skin off her nose. She still got paid at the end of the week. Mooney, that's... Remus laughed and moved away. Come on, let's get out of here. I'm hungry. They began a slightly slower descent down the spiral staircase, but had to stop halfway as they heard footsteps coming up. Remus's stomach sank when he saw it was Christopher. He'd recovered a bit from his sunburn, but still had a bit of a hot glow around his cheeks and nose. He froze when he saw Sirius, with Remus just behind him. The 2 boys flattened themselves against the wall as best they could to let him past. Hi, Chris. Remus smiled politely. Hi, Christopher responded, not making eye contact. Ah, he was definitely still annoyed about the way Remus had spoken to him at the end of last term. Remus had been worried about that, but he supposed he deserved a bit of a cold shoulder. The silver pin gleamed on Chris's robes, and Remus tried not to wince. He could feel it in his teeth, a giddy, sick sensation. Well done on getting prefect, he said, trying to sound friendly and encouraging. Yeah, thanks. Christopher nodded. He still didn't look up exactly, but he sort of looked at the space over Remus's left shoulder and gave a weak smile as he passed. The close proximity to the silver was extremely unpleasant, and Remus's head swam, making him dizzy. As Christopher pushed past them both, Remus wobbled forward and had to grip Sirius's shoulder to keep balanced. He had to concentrate on his breathing to avoid fainting altogether until Christopher had reached the Owlery, and barely noticed that Sirius had slipped a strong arm around his back for support. When he opened his eyes, and the wooziness had passed, Remus thought it must have only been a few seconds that they'd stood like that, clinging to each other in the shadowy stairway. Must stop getting stuck in confined spaces with him, the logical part of Remus's brain scolded. He realised he'd been gripping Sirius's shoulder really quite hard, and let go quickly, stepping away and adjusting his robes. "Sorry," he said. "Took me by surprise." "It's okay," Sirius smiled, turning and walking down the stairs again. "Another reason to hate prefects, yeah?" End of chapter 96.